Heartwarming discovery, patient's father reveals amazing date invitation to underprivileged nurse. In the dim, bustling hallways of St. Francis Hospital, whispers spread like wildfire. Did you hear? Mr. Thompson's son is planning to ask out one of the nurses. The excitement fluttered through the air, an almost electric buzz that drew curious eyes. But this wasn't just any nurse, it was Sarah, a dedicated soul whose spirit lit up the tired workspace. With her scrubs shimmering under fluorescent lights, she bounced from patient to patient, her laughter ringing out like music in the midst of chaos. Yet, beneath that smile lay the reality of a single mother striving for a better life for her 8-year-old son, Ethan. Sarah often dreamed about the future where father figures weren't absent, and financial strain was a faded memory. Her tender care brought comfort to Mr. Thompson, an elderly war veteran who had spent most of his life adding beauty to the human experience. As she adjusted his blanket, the deep lines crossing his face softened. "You remind me of my daughter," he murmured, gratitude threading through his words. It was in those sweet moments that Sarah found purpose, even as the world outside felt heavy with economic hardship. Meanwhile, David, the son who had strode in with an air of superiority, tended to observe from the sidelines. In his tailored suit, he represented everything Sarah had strived to escape. Glancing at her, he initially saw her as merely another layer of stress in a chaotic hospital. Yet, as the days passed, an unexpected shift occurred. He couldn't ignore the light Sarah brought into the lives of others, the way she held Mr. Thompson's hand, whispering words of encouragement that seemed to resonate deeper than any medicine ever could. With every passing day, David's heart began to thaw. Yet even as admiration bubbled up, he felt a pang of conflict. Could he reconcile his family's expectations with his growing affection for a woman from a different walk of life? He often found himself lost in thought, torn between loyalty to both his upbringing and the feeling blooming inside him. It felt wrong to find hope in a place labeled less than, yet Sarah's resilience beckoned him closer. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One evening, as the twilight sun painted the sky in shades of gold, Mr. Thompson and David engaged in a heart-to-heart conversation. "You know," the old man said slowly, "life doesn't care about class. It cares for kindness. You see that nurse? She's got the heart of gold." David nodded, feeling the weight of wisdom transform his perception. It was in that moment that he realized he needed to confront his own prejudice. Fueled by his father's words, he began to think of a way to break down those invisible walls. As whispers of possible romance between Sarah and David sparked throughout the community, surprise blossomed into support, overpowering doubts. Everyone came together to cheer for Sarah, her courage rising amidst the encouragement. But as David contemplated inviting her on a date, a wave of uncertainty washed over him. Could they truly find connection across the chasm of their backgrounds? Would love triumph where others saw only disparity? The roles of duty and ambition loomed large as he took a deep breath, preparing to take a step that could change everything. The next day at St. Francis Hospital unfolded with an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Rumors had taken root, spreading like pollen in spring, igniting a spark of excitement among nurses and staff alike. Everyone was talking about David's plans. Would he really ask Sarah out? With every passing hour, the questions loomed larger, filling the air with a sense of hope. Sarah arrived early, her presence a bright light cutting through the muted tones of the hospital corridors. Little did she know that David was pacing in the staff break room, heart racing. He had rehearsed his words 100 times, but they always felt inadequate. What if she said no? What if the weight of their worlds fell heavy in that moment? He took a deep breath, summoning courage from the conversations he had with Mr. Thompson. Kindness over class. Just then, Sarah walked in, her laughter echoing off the walls, drawing David from his thoughts like a moth to a flame. She carried a lightness that seemed to fill the room. David's heart skipped a beat as he watched her interact with an elderly patient, her hands gentle and comforting. She had a way of making everyone feel seen, as if their struggles were hers too. "Hey, Sarah!" David called out, his voice catching in his throat. She turned, her eyes sparkling with surprise. "Could we talk for a second?" "Of course. What's up?" she said, her voice warm and inviting. David felt the floor drop away slightly. I was thinking about maybe, going out for coffee, when you're free. Just the two of us." The warmth in Sarah's eyes flickered, hesitation creeping in. She paused, taking a moment that stretched between them like a fragile thread. "Coffee?" she repeated, searching his face. It felt sudden, like a jolt of lightning through the peaceful haziness of her everyday life. "Yes. I mean, if you're interested." "I just thought," he swallowed hard, trying to steady himself. "It could be nice to get to know each other better, outside of the hospital." Her heart raced. It was rare for someone like David, someone so polished, to show an interest in her. Yet, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. They came from different worlds. "I'd love to," she finally said, a smile breaking through the uncertainty. But she wanted him to know her truth. "But I'm a single mom. Life can get complicated." "I get it," David said, nodding earnestly. "I'm not afraid of complicated." A wave of relief washed over his features, and excitement swelled in Sarah's chest. Hours later, as Sarah wrapped up her shifts, the anticipation swirled in her mind. What if this coffee turned into something real? She could already picture Ethan's cautious excitement, a new friend. Meanwhile, David mulled over the upcoming date with hope and anxiety dancing in his heart. Would they truly be able to bridge the gap between their lives? At that moment, as both prepared for their evening, uncertainty hung in the air like a delicate promise. Each was on the precipice of something beautiful yet unknown. Would they overcome the barriers their backgrounds posed? As Sarah finally stepped into the small cafe where they agreed to meet, her heartbeat quickened with both anxiety and exhilaration. She spotted him, waiting at a corner table, a nervous smile on his face that made her stomach flutter. Still, in the back of her mind rested a simple yet heavy question: how would their different worlds shape this newfound connection? Each second felt like a lifetime as they locked eyes, ready to see if love could indeed conquer all. David watched Sarah approach, her figure warm against the quaint backdrop of the cafe, and for a moment, everything around him blurred into the periphery. Her smile radiated brightness, but he could see a flicker of uncertainty dwelling in her eyes. "Hey," she said, settling into the chair opposite him. "Thanks for inviting me. This is a nice place." "Yeah, I thought you might like it," David replied, trying to keep his voice steady, though his heart raced like a wild horse. There was so much at stake, a universe of unseen walls they had to navigate together. The waitress came by, and they ordered coffee, something simple, yet somehow it felt monumental. As the minutes slipped by, they fell into easy conversation about their work, their favorite movies, and shared laughter that rang more easily than either had expected. But beneath the playful banter, the undercurrents of doubt swirled. "So, Ethan," David ventured when the silence grew just a bit too thick. "He's your only kid, right?" Sarah hesitated, her gaze dropping to her coffee cup, the warmth of it cupping her hands. "Yeah. He's 7. He keeps me on my toes," she said, her voice softening. "He's a lot like me, stubborn and full of life." A smile broke across David's face as he pictured a little version of Sarah, perhaps running around with energy and wild laughter. "That sounds amazing," he said, his admiration genuine. "Being a mom must be intense." "It has its moments," she confessed, a hint of vulnerability peeking through. "But it's worth it. Every sleepless night and every chaotic day, he's my world. I can only imagine. I was thinking if this goes well, maybe I could meet him sometime." He spoke the words lightly, but his pulse quickened. Would it be too soon? How would she react? Sarah's eyebrows raised a bit in surprise, but instead of pulling away, her lips curved into a smile. You really want to meet my son? I do, he replied earnestly, hoping it didn't sound too presumptuous. I know it might seem quick, but I just think you both are really important. And I want to be part of your lives, if you'll let me. For a moment, a silence enveloped them. Sarah searched his face, looking for hints of insincerity, but all she found was earnestness. It clasped her heart like a gentle grip, but fear crept in too. David, it's not just coffee. It's a lot more complicated than that. His expression shifted to one of understanding. I know that. The last thing I want is to make your life harder. I'm still getting used to the idea of where our worlds meet. The weight of that statement hung in the air, both thrilling and terrifying. This was something new for her, a chance to reach beyond the familiar struggles of her daily life. Before Sarah could respond, an unexpected shout echoed from the cafe entrance. Mom! A small boy burst in, eyes wide and brimming with excitement. I got a gold star today. Sarah's heart melted at Ethan's jubilant entrance, energy spilling like confetti. The boy rushed to her side, and in that instant, the worried lines on her face smoothed away. Ethan, this is David, she introduced, her smile wide. David knelt to the boy's level, heart swelling. A gold star. That's awesome. What did you do to get it? The boy's chatter filled the space, momentarily pushing aside the weight of adult complexities. As laughter echoed, David couldn't help but feel a growing sense of belonging. As quickly as it began, though, Sarah's smile faded back to uncertainty. She glanced at David, caught between a whirlwind of emotions. Could this be real? And as the conversation flowed, one undeniable question lingered on the edge of their hearts: could they truly make this work amidst their different worlds? But just as David felt the comfort of connection, a shadow of doubt crept back in. What if their moment was only fleeting? With the evening stretching out before them, both were left in the grip of anticipation, hanging in the balance of possibility. Would they be able to hold on despite the challenges ahead? David straightened up, still crouching beside Ethan, who was practically bouncing on his small feet, the excitement radiating off him. I drew a rocket. And I told Ms. Brown that I want to be an astronaut when I grow up, the boy declared, eyes wide with the enthusiasm only a 7-year-old could muster. Sarah's gaze softened, watching her son bloom with confidence. A rocket, huh? That's amazing, buddy. She said, pride swelling in her chest. Her heart skipped a beat as she glanced back at David, who was fully engaged with her son. His genuine interest was palpable, and it nestled a flicker of hope in her chest. Astronauts get to see stars up close, David replied. What's the first planet you want to visit? He leaned in, mirroring Ethan's energy with a boyish grin. Ethan's eyes sparkled as he declared, Mars. I want to play with the red rocks. Sarah chuckled, the sound escaping her subconsciously, and David felt the warmth of her laughter wrap around him. In that moment, the cafe felt as if it had transformed into some magical realm, where only they existed: mother, son, and the man who dared to step into their lives. So, David, Sarah ventured hesitantly, how do you feel about kids? The question hung there, heavy with unspoken weight that he took a deep breath. Honestly, I love kids. They remind me of the simple joys in life like laughter, adventure, and, well, being curious about everything. Curiosity is key, Sarah said, her eyes shimmering. Ethan is always asking questions. I sometimes think I'll run out of answers. David laughed softly. I think that's half the fun. You'll find out together. For a moment, all the before might have seemed impossible, but now it felt just within reach. Yet, as the conversation shifted back to Ethan's school and friends, Sarah couldn't shake the creeping doubt that gnawed at her. Could David handle the chaos that came with being a part of their lives? But seeing David interact with her son, sharing those innocent moments filled with wonder, melted some of her reservations. Still, She felt the shadows of her reality pressing tightly against the bubbling joy in her heart. Would it truly be this easy? Was there a place for all three of them in this narrative she dared to envision? "Mom, can we get ice cream after?" Ethan asked, his eyes flicking between them, bright and hopeful. Sarah laughed, shaking her head. "You just had a snack, Ethan. But it's a celebration." He protested with the logic only a child could muster. David picked up on their playful banter, a grin inching across his face. "Ice cream sounds like a perfect way to keep celebrating that gold star," he chimed in, throwing his support behind Ethan's idea, the twinkle in his eye encouraging Sarah. "See, Mom. Even David thinks so," Ethan beamed, triumphantly pointing at David as if he'd just won a significant battle. A soft smile tugged at Sarah's lips as she met David's gaze. For a heartbeat, the question of complexity faded into the background. But the reality had a way of imposing itself, reminding her of their lives, how busy and tangled everything could get. "Ethan, it's getting late," she started hesitantly. "Just one scoop," he interjected, his little hands clasped together, eyes wide, begging. David watched Sarah's expression morph, the internal battle evident across her features. "I don't mind. We can make it a quick outing. Just a taste of normalcy, right?" He encouraged gently. Her heart raced, torn between wanting to say yes and the fear of moving too quickly. And yet, here they were tangled in a moment filled with laughter, belonging, and possibility. As she weighed her options, deciding on whether to step into this unknown territory, she caught a glimpse of David leaning towards Ethan, already strategizing how to convince her. But just as hope began to take root, the moment was interrupted by a message pinging on her phone, harsh and sudden against the warmth that had enveloped them. "Excuse me for a moment," Sarah said, pulling her phone from her pocket. Her heart sank as she saw the name on the screen, Mark, her ex-husband. David noticed the change in her demeanor, the way her body stiffened, the light dimming in her eyes. What did that mean? As she read the message, tension thickened the air around their table, leaving unanswered questions swirling like autumn leaves blown by an unseen wind. "Everything okay?" David asked quietly, concern etched in his features, pulling her back to the moment. She bit her lip, the decision weighing heavier now than before. With uncertainty shadowing her heart once more, she nodded slowly, unsure of how to respond. Would the weight of her past hold her back from the joy that was right in front of her? And as she took in the scene, the expectant grins of her son and the patient curiosity in David's eyes, she couldn't help but wonder, was she ready to step forward or would she be pulled back into the shadows of doubt? As her thoughts raced, the ping of the phone lingered heavily, an undeniable reminder of the complexity that awaited. Would she take a leap or retreat back into the familiar? Sarah's fingers trembled slightly as she read Mark's message. Each word felt like a stone lodged in her throat, constricting her ability to breathe. "We need to talk. Meet me at the park tomorrow." The urgency in his words struck like lightning, illuminating all the shadows she had hoped to leave behind. She looked up, her heart racing. David was still watching her, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. Ethan, meanwhile, was bouncing on his feet, completely oblivious to the moment of tension. "Mom! Are we getting ice cream?" he chirped, his voice cheery in stark contrast to the turmoil within her. Yeah, buddy. Just give me a sec," she replied, offering a weak smile even as her insides twisted. "What did it say?" David asked gently, leaning in closer. There was no judgment in his gaze, only genuine worry for her well-being. She hesitated. Telling him felt like exposing a wound that hadn't healed. "It's from Mark. He wants to talk. Tomorrow. Do you have to?" David's voice held a softness that broke through her initial instincts to retreat. He might want to discuss custody or something important." She could barely get the words out, the weight of them heavy on her tongue. The mention of Mark always brought back the stress, the arguments, the betrayals, and the moments she had replayed over and over in her mind. Ethan's excitement continued to swell as he shifted on his feet. "But Mom, we were gonna celebrate my rocket." So many things to celebrate, David said, his tone a blend of encouragement and understanding. Maybe the ice cream is just what you need. A little time to breathe before everything else. Sarah looked at her son, his bright eyes sparkling with dreams of Mars. She momentarily forgot the chaotic threads of her life, lost in the innocence of childhood desire. "You're right," she finally whispered, the edges of her tension softening a bit. "Let us go get that ice cream." "Yay!" Ethan shouted, as he jumped up and down, eyes glimmering with anticipation. David matched his energy with a chuckle and stood up, holding out a hand to Sarah to help her up. She wondered for a split second about the weight of their lives, her past, his present, and the potential future that hung suspended in the air. As they walked out of the cafe, Sarah felt the cool breeze brush against her face, lifting some of the weight from her shoulders. Ethan chattered excitedly about rockets and planets, and she let his laughter wrap around her like a warm blanket. Yet, alongside that warmth, doubt lingered in her mind. What if Mark tried to pull her back into that chaotic world? What if he challenged her ability to move forward? She bit her lip, trying to shake away the anxiety that gnawed at her heart. Just take it one day at a time, she told herself, repeating the mantra she'd clung to since their separation. As they made their way to the ice cream shop, Ethan raced ahead, turning back to share his dreams of space with anyone who'd listen. David walked beside Sarah, their fingers brushing now and then, igniting a sense of connection that she found both comforting and terrifying. "Do you want to talk about it?" David finally asked, his voice low and careful. "About Mark, I mean." For a moment, she hesitated. The walls she had built felt both protective and confining, a tug-of-war between wanting to share her burden and needing to shield her son from the heaviness of it all. "There's not much to say, he just has a way of popping back in when I least expect it," she replied, her voice growing softer. "Maybe it's not about him." His tone was supportive, encouraging. "What do you want this time? What do you need?" That question hung between them like a beacon. She felt torn, uncertain, her heart tugging in various directions. Would she hold her ground, or would the echo of her past pull her back into darkness? As they reached the ice cream shop, her thoughts were a labyrinth of possibilities. Every scoop of ice cream felt like a chance to choose joy, to choose the future, but Mark loomed like a storm cloud on the horizon. Ethan was already shouting flavors, and Sarah caught David watching them both, a mix of admiration and pursuit in his eyes. The moment felt fragile, like glass that could shatter at any provocation. "Just breathe, Sarah," she whispered under her breath, but the upcoming confrontation with Mark loomed large, a spectator hovering too close for comfort. As they entered the shop, reality hit again. Choices were ahead. Choices to make, and now the weight of the day, of tomorrow, rested squarely on her shoulders. Little did she know that the conversation with Mark would unleash more than old wounds. It might uncover truths that could change everything again. The vibrant chatter of the ice cream shop enveloped Sarah, a welcome distraction from the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. She watched as Ethan rushed to pick his flavor rainbow explosion. He shouted, bouncing on his toes, his childish exuberance alight in her shadowed world. She managed a smile, forced but genuine, grateful for these fleeting moments where everything felt normal, even if just for a second. "2 scoops of that, please," Ethan declared to the attendant, his excitement infectious. Sarah could hear the soft chuckle from David beside her. He was studying her with an intensity that both soothed and unsettled her. "What are you thinking?" David finally asked, leaning closer as if their conversation could remain secret within the bustling cafe. "Just everything," she replied, feeling the weight of the word. "I thought I could escape it. Mark, it's complicated." She picked her own flavor, something comforting and familiar, vanilla, with sprinkles. "Simple, but enough." David shifted, glancing at their son before turning back to her. "You don't have to carry it alone, you know." "I know," she replied, her voice almost a whisper. But the truth was, sharing the burden felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. One wrong move, one misstep, and she'd tumble back into the chaos she had worked so hard to leave behind. As they sat down at a small table, Ethan's giggles filled the air. He scooped a mouthful of ice cream, his face lighting up as the flavors danced on his tongue. For a moment, Sarah felt her heart flutter with warmth. "Mom! You have to try this," Ethan urged, shoving a spoon over to her. The innocence of his offer melted away some of her anxiety. She took a small taste, and the joy in her son's eyes turned by a fraction the weight she was carrying. "Delicious!" she exclaimed, trying to immerse herself in the moment rather than the impending confrontation with Mark. But as she watched Ethan, her mind drifted back to the message. The reminder of Mark seemed to punctuate each joyful moment. She couldn't help but wonder, what could he possibly want? Did he regret how things ended? Was he merely seeking control again? "Hey, how about we build a rocket ship with your ice cream cones?" David suggested, sparking Ethan's imaginations of stars, adventures, and endless skies. Sarah's heart warmed at the sight of their laughter, but her heart ached at the thought of this fleeting happiness crashing against her reality. As they invested time into their silly creation, David caught her gaze. "If you want, I can go with you tomorrow. I won't pry, but having someone there, someone who cares, might help." The offer tugged at something deep within her. She hadn't thought of that. The thought of facing Mark alone sent shivers through her. "You do that for me?" she asked, hesitation and hope mixing in her tone. "Of course. You're important to me, Sarah. I want to help." "Just say the word," he replied, a steady gaze filled with sincerity. A warmth spread through her chest, and for a fleeting moment, the darkness that loomed at the edges of her mind was pushed back. Maybe she didn't have to face everything on her own anymore. Yet, uncertainty lingered. Could she rely on someone for support when she had always been her own fortress? "I appreciate it, really," she murmured. "I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing for Ethan, for myself." She could feel the weight of her choices pressing down again. It was as if the air thickened, turning the joyous moment into a precipice, balancing between fear and hope, hesitation and courage. Just then, Ethan exclaimed, "Rocket ship ready for takeoff." His voice jolted her back to the moment, pulling her back into the laughter that surrounded them. But deep down, her heart raced at the thought of the inevitable next day, the conversation with Mark, the way it could change everything once more. As they finished their ice cream and leaned over their makeshift creation, Sarah felt the impending storm approach again. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, the screen lighting up with another message from Mark. Tension hung in the air, a sharp contrast to the sweetness of the day. What if this message wasn't just about custody after all? What if he was ready to stir the embers of their complicated past one more time? Her heart thudded loudly as she hesitated to check the screen. What could he want now? She caught David's steady gaze, and for a moment, hope flickered back to life. Would she allow herself to embrace support, or would she retreat into the familiar darkness? The world around her faded, and all she could feel was the weight of choices pressing at her chest. As her fingers hovered over the phone, she knew tomorrow would bring more than just another conversation, it would present a reckoning. Would she be strong enough to face it? The moment hung heavily in the air, and with it, a question she couldn't quite escape: what could possibly happen next? The next morning light spilled through Sarah's window, casting warm, golden rays across her kitchen. She glanced at the clock, and the realization that today was the day sent a jolt through her. The heaviness from the previous day returned, but she fought against it, focusing instead on Ethan's soft snores drifting from his room. She quietly made coffee, letting the familiar scent fill the small space. It was one of her comforts, a ritual that grounded her. But as she brewed, doubt crept back in. What was she about to face? Her heart raced at the thought of seeing Mark again. The last time they spoke, everything had spiraled into confusion and hurt. "Mommy." Ethan's voice broke through her thoughts, cheerful and innocent. As he padded into the kitchen, still in pajamas, he wrapped his tiny arms around her waist. The warmth of his hug seeped into her, momentarily pushing away her fears. "Good morning, buddy. Sleep well?" she asked, bending down to meet his bright blue eyes. Yeah. I dreamed we built a real rocket ship. Can we go to space today? His excitement was infectious, and for a moment, Sarah could forget the call she had to make later. Maybe tomorrow, we can go to the moon, she smiled, and his laughter echoed in the room. She felt the weight of the world lift just slightly. After breakfast, the tension returned as they prepared for their day. Ethan was bustling with energy, eagerly putting on his shoes, while Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. She had promised to check in with David before meeting Mark. David's voice was calm when he answered. Hey, just wanted to remind you you're not alone in this. You've got this, Sarah. I don't know, David. What if? The what-ifs twisted in her mind like a maze, impossible to navigate. Focus on what you can control. Stay strong for Ethan, and know I'll be right here waiting to hear how it goes, he encouraged. Thank you for being here, she whispered, feeling the support anchor her. As she hung up, she caught her own reflection in the window. Her hair was tousled, and the hints of worry etched across her forehead were undeniable. Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself. Today was about more than just her, it was for Ethan. With a determined push, she ventured into the day. The drive to the agreed place made her heart race. Would Mark recognize the changes she'd undergone? Would he still see her as the woman he once controlled, or would he notice the strength she had fought so hard to build? When she arrived, anxiety churned in her stomach. The cafe was bright and bustling, mirroring her own chaotic thoughts. Finding a table, she tried to steady her heartbeat as the minutes ticked by. Would he be on time? Would he show it all? Then, she saw him walk in, the familiar build and face igniting 100 emotions all at once. He glanced around, eyes searching, and an unsettling mix of fear and anger rose in her throat. But as he spotted her, something shifted in his expression, a flicker of uncertainty, maybe regret. Sarah, he began, his voice smooth but lacking the confidence she had remembered. Mark, she replied, holding her ground. The air was thick with tension, and she could feel Ethan's shadow playing around in the back of her mind, urging her to stand tall. They were no longer the same people who had stumbled into their turbulent past. As the conversation unfolded, with each word spoken, Sarah could see bits of the life they used to share reflected in his eyes. But would this moment bring closure, or would it reignite the flames of their complicated history? The questions loomed large, but there was a new flame inside her, a flame that promised she wouldn't allow the past to define her future. Just when it seemed they were on the brink of understanding, Mark leaned in closer, his voice low and conspiratorial. I've been thinking about things about us. Her breath hitched. What did that mean? As uncertainty stretched between them, a confrontation loomed closer than she had anticipated. Would this be the revelation she longed for, or the beginning of a renewed struggle? The weight of what he was about to say felt like a stone poised to drop. Would the past come rushing back, or could they finally move forward? And then, she realized, in that moment, her heart was racing not just out of fear but anticipation. What was he about to reveal? She held her breath, caught in the balance between hope and dread. As Mark opened his mouth to speak, Sarah braced herself for whatever was coming next. Would this conversation lead to healing or only deepen the wounds of yesterday? Mark's gaze held a mix of anticipation and anxiety as he opened his mouth again, but the words that escaped him weren't what Sarah expected. I've realized I need to take responsibility for my actions. The sincerity in his tone softened the tension, but along with it came a wave of doubt. Responsible? You think it's that simple? Sarah's voice trembled slightly, but she didn't back down. She felt the fire inside her shift just a bit, flickering from anticipation to skepticism. I know I hurt you, both of you. He paused, swallowing hard. I haven't been fair to you or Ethan. Hearing her son's name made Sarah's heart beat louder in her chest. Her protective instincts flared, ready for whatever came next. What do you mean? She pressed, her voice steadier now. She had come too far to let him sway her with empty words. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want to make things right, or at least try." His honesty was disarming, yet it felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong step could send everything crashing down. "Try." She echoed, the word heavy with memories of broken promises. "You've tried before, Mark. And where did it get us?" He took a deep breath, his expression shifting. It was like watching the clouds roll in and out, bringing both shadow and light. "I know. I can't change the past, but I can change my future. I want to be a better father." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable, and confusion danced in her mind. Could he really be saying this? Could he genuinely want to be part of Ethan's life again? Their shared history flashed through her thoughts, faded photographs of laughter and then heartbreak. The way they fought to keep their family together, only to let it unravel. Could they really pick up the pieces without falling apart again? Just then, Ethan's laughter broke through the noise of the cafe. Sarah glanced towards the entrance and saw her son, peeking through the glass door, eyes wide with excitement. She felt a protective surge rush through her. "Mommy!" Ethan called, dashing in like a burst of sunshine. She turned back to Mark, battling the sudden whirlwind of emotions. "We have to think of Ethan. He deserves better than the chaos we brought into our lives." Mark nodded, his expression earnest. "I want to show him I can be better. I'm ready to fight for a place in his life." Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. Did she dare to hope for a change, even after everything? Taking a deep breath, she willed herself to be brave. "What does that look like? I can't let you hurt him again." Mark leaned back slightly, as if grappling with her words. "I get it. I just want a chance to start fresh, on your terms." The honesty resonated with a flicker of the hope buried deep within Sarah. But a shadow of doubt lingered, whispering that maybe this was just another false start. Could they really navigate this unfamiliar territory? As Ethan approached their table, eyes sparkling, he sidled up to Sarah, oblivious to the tension in the air. "Mommy, I want to make spaceships with Daddy. Can he help?" The request felt like a punch to Sarah's gut. Her heart ached at the innocence in Ethan's voice, and for a moment, she felt the walls closing in. Mark looked at her, a question lingering unasked, but the longing in his eyes was evident. Sarah swallowed hard, caught between protection and possibility. This was a crossroads, and the decision weighed heavily on her. Would she let Ethan have the father he wanted? Or would they both end up hurt again? Time hung in the balance like a suspended breath, and Sarah was acutely aware that every moment counted. What did forgiving truly look like? As the light from the window caught the glint of Mark's eyes, she realized she had to make a choice. But would it lead to healing or heartache? The chatter of the cafe faded around her, and all she could hear was the question echoed in her mind, "Can I really trust him again?" Ethan beamed up at Sarah, his small hand grabbing hers tightly. "Mommy, please." His eyes sparkled with sheer joy, the innocence of his plea tearing at Sarah's heart even more. Mark sat back, visibly taken aback by Ethan's exuberance. Sarah felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions. On one side, there was the hope that she could give Ethan the father he longed for. On the other, the scars of betrayal screamed that opening that door could lead to pain for both of them. "Ethan, buddy." Sarah began, her voice wavering slightly as she tried to find the words. How could she explain the complexities of their situation to a child who only wanted to play with his dad? "Why can't we, Mommy?" Ethan insisted, his youthful enthusiasm unwavering. His little frown emerged, and it cut deeper than anything else Sarah had experienced. Mark, sensing the tension, spoke softly. "I really want to be there for him, Sarah. I want to pick him up from school, help him with his projects, spend time with him. Honestly, I can't bear the thought of missing out on those moments." Each word felt like a thread weaving together the fabric of their shared past. She glanced at him and noticed the vulnerability in his eyes, a small crack in the walls he had built. Listen, Ethan, she finally said, kneeling down to meet her son's gaze. I want you to have special time with Daddy, too. But, we need to figure some things out first, okay? Her heart pounded as she said it. There was a risk that he might not understand, might feel rejected. But instead of disappointment, Ethan nodded, brow furrowing in thought. Okay, Mommy. But I want to build the biggest spaceship ever. He exclaimed, his excitement igniting once again, momentarily lifting the heaviness of the moment. Mark smiled, a genuine smile that melted away some of the worry she had held inside. I promise, we will build an enormous spaceship, Ethan. Just give me the chance. A tentative peace settled over them, though Sarah wasn't sure how long it would last. She studied Mark closely, feeling the weight of each unspoken word. Could she truly let him back into their lives? The cafe buzzed with life around them, but it felt like they were in their own world, time suspended. Her heart raced. Every minute they spent together reminded her of why they fell in love and why they'd fallen apart. Trust was a fragile thing, and in this moment, she felt it teetering on the edge. Ethan, how about you and I go grab some ice cream while we let your mom and daddy talk? Mark suggested, his voice soothing. Ethan bounced on his toes, clearly thrilled with the idea. Yes. I want chocolate. And sprinkles. A smile broke through Sarah's serious demeanor. Seeing how happy her son was brought lightness into the room. Okay, you two go, she said, forcing herself to relax a little. But be back in 20 minutes. And no candy before dinner. Mark winked at her as he took Ethan's hand and led him toward the door. We'll be back before you know it. I promise. The moment they left, silence enveloped her like a soft blanket. It granted her a chance to process everything. She could feel her heart racing as she sat in the aftermath of her thoughts. Mark had left her with questions echoing in the quiet. What would their next steps look like? Could they really redefine their relationship as co-parents? And then, the lingering pang of doubt crept back in what if this was just an act? What if he wasn't really ready to change? The cafe patrons blurred as she steeled her resolve. No matter what, she had to protect Ethan at all costs. As she glanced out the door after them, her emotions tangled around her. She had to decide, would she let hope in, or keep it locked away for safety? And with that thought, she felt a surge of anticipation. The real challenge was only just beginning. What would be revealed when Mark came back through that door? As the minutes ticked by in the cafe, warmth filled the air, but so did uncertainty. Sarah stirred her coffee, trying to find clarity amidst the swirling emotions. Mark, the father of her child, had just walked out with Ethan. Her heart remained heavy, straining to make sense of the choices before her. When she finally spotted them returning, laughter floated ahead of their footsteps, almost like music that danced in the air. Ethan's eyes glimmered with excitement, a gold star sticker adorning his shirt after a remarkable day at school. Mark followed closely, a smile on his face that bore a blend of hope and nervousness. Mommy. Ethan's voice was a melody that filled the room. It lit up Sarah's chest, yet brought back echoes of their complicated past. Mark slowed down, looking at Sarah as they approached her table, uncertainty etched on his face. How was the ice cream? She asked, swallowing her worry. Delicious. Ethan chimed, his cheeks smeared with remnants of chocolate. Mark chuckled lightly, squeezing Ethan's shoulder, and for a brief moment, the tension faded. We decided we're going to build a spaceship together, Mark stated proudly, looking at them both. He says he wants it to be bigger than anything ever built. The conviction in his voice made Sarah's heart do a little flip. Could this really be the man who once let them down? Really? That sounds exciting. She replied, her apprehension slightly softening in the warmth of their enthusiasm. Mark glanced back at Sarah, a vulnerability surfacing in his expression. I know our past isn't perfect. I've made mistakes, he trailed off as he searched her face. But I'm really trying to make things right. For both of you. Ethan's eyes sparkled, completely absorbed in the idea of rockets and stars, blissfully unaware of the weight pressing on his mother's shoulders. "Mommy, can we build the spaceship now?" he asked, jumping up and down in animated excitement. Sarah looked between them, the self-assurance in Mark's voice, the innocent hope in Ethan's eyes. For the first time in a while, she felt a flicker of optimism ignite within her. They were beginning to find their footing, slowly, but surely. "Yes, we can." But first, she hesitated, still wrestling with hesitations. "Mark, are you really ready for this? It's not just a game. It's about being part of Ethan's life. He deserves better than the shadows of our past." Mark nodded, his brow furrowed with sincerity. "I get it, and I'm ready to step up. I want to be here for both of you, not perfect, but present. I've been working on myself, really working." The gravity of his words settled between them. Could it be true? Could he genuinely mean it? Sarah felt her heart pounding, the walls in her chest trembling ever so slightly. "That's all I ever wanted," she murmured, finding strength in the clarity of her own desires. "For Ethan to have a father he can trust." A silence hovered between them, tides of past grievances washing ashore, but the current of possibility felt stronger. "I'm committed to showing you that I've changed, even if it takes time to rebuild trust," Mark promised, his voice steady. Ethan, caught up in his enthusiasm, ran circles around them, oblivious to the weighty conversation. "Let's race spaceships," he shouted, and before his mother could respond, he dashed across the cafe, his laughter echoing. "All right, Captain Ethan. We'll catch up," Mark called after him, a genuine smile spreading across his face. The brightness in his demeanor felt like a tentative promise of a new beginning. As Sarah watched, she marveled at the dynamic they had. There was so much to unpack, so many feelings to mend, but in this moment, they were beginning to forge new paths. Every smile and shared laughter was like a brick building a sturdy foundation between them. When Mark tucked Ethan into their makeshift spaceship made of chairs and tables, Sarah felt her heart swell. Just by being there, he was already becoming the father he had promised to be. "Sarah," Mark said, glancing back at her with sincerity etched in his features, "I know it won't happen overnight. But what if we navigate this together, one step at a time?" Sarah took a deep breath, the weight of her fears lifting. "I'd like that," she replied softly. Stepping into the unknown didn't seem so daunting anymore. Hope flickered, pulling her into the embrace of new possibilities. In facing the complexities together, they could create something beautiful. "Yes!" Ethan screamed, "Time for liftoff." He punched his fists in the air as if signaling the start of a grand adventure. As the three of them laughed and played, Sarah held on to the belief that despite the challenges ahead, they could carve out happiness from the trials of the past, a future filled with forgiveness, laughter, and endless days of building imaginary spaceships together. In that bustling cafe, among the vibrant conversations and the delicate buzz of hope, Sarah realized something powerful: this was just the beginning. And it was a beginning she couldn't wait to embrace. Now, let us keep this momentum going. You need to subscribe now, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you even more. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and share this heartfelt transformation with the world. Comment below your favorite part of Sarah's journey and how it touched your heart. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You know how important it is to support this channel, and your action makes all the difference.